Yes, team. So, this might be one of, if not the most favorite podcast I have ever shot. And it was actually shot on Paul Standell, the co-founder of the PT Project, on the PT Project podcast. On there, they speak all about biomechanics, training, coaching online, how to get results. So if that's your thing, I would definitely recommend checking it out. But Paul showed he had a huge amount of heart, huge amount of openness, huge amount of vulnerability. And quite frankly, I don't have another politically correct term, but just a huge pair of balls to go to the depths that he did. And in this session, we were able to, or in this podcast, he actually said, can we just do a session? Can we just give this a go? And what started as a quest for a little bit more performance turned into a journey of self-discovery. And you're going to get an insight as to what doing some of the work actually looks like. Now, not every single session is like this. This is a typical session that we would have in what we call our foundations phase in our one-to-one evolution program. If you're wondering what on earth that is, so we have a 18-week one-to-one mental performance coaching program that's going to teach you how to master your emotions, minimizing anxious overwhelm, getting control, getting more shit done, and getting the clarity that you need to take you and your performance to another level. So in the foundations phase, it's very much some of the deeper work like we encountered on that call. So it's going into some of the deeper emotions like fear, anxiousness, overwhelm, insecurity, self-doubt, guilt, shame, anger, sadness, whatever it might be. And in that foundations phase, really, we're doing two things. Number one, we're putting in the foundations of those deeper mental and emotional blocks. And then we're also helping our clients create structure. So structuring their time, structuring their planning so they can get more shit done. That's the first six week phase of our program. And in this session, luckily, where Paul has done some of this work before, he was able to get there pretty quick. So we essentially run through what would have been both the discovery call of what we would run through with a TMP client in the first 10 or 20 minutes. And then as it goes into what we call the intervention, I used a timeline technique to help him get to the root cause of some of those emotions. And what you're going to hear might sound a little bit scary. It might sound a little bit heavy. It might sound a little bit, whoa, I had no idea. I thought it was just peak performance and productivity hacks. Yeah, we've got all of that. That's in our mastery and our peak phases of our one-to-one evolution program. But here we were able to get to the root cause pretty quick in a really beautiful and deep way. So I just want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Paul for offering himself up like that to do some of the work. And it'll give you an insight. Some of it will make sense. Some of it won't make sense. Some of it will think, what on earth? This sounds crazy. But just go with it. Give it a listen. Go in with a curious, open mind. Because this is the sort of work that top performers around the industry is doing. When you look up at our clients, you go, wow, they work with those clients. How have they got those results? How have they done that? These are the hard conversations that everyone else is afraid to have. Everyone else is afraid to go in there. What if I open the Pandora's box? What's it going to mean for me? Am I still going to be able to work on the things I have in my business whilst doing doing my current work? Yes, absolutely you can. All of our clients are doing it. All of our team are doing it. I'm still doing that work, yet still performing and pulling off things I never thought that was possible. So make yourself comfortable. It's a big listen. Give it a listen. And if you found it helpful, then please do share it. Share it with others. Share it to your story. Drop me a message. Drop Paul a message. We want to take this stuff out to the world. That's why I'm hiring team members as quickly as we can get high quality team members. This is why we're taking our one-to-one program around the globe now. Because I truly believe the world needs to be doing this work. Not from a place of I'm broken, but from a place of things are good, but I want to get to great. And if that sounds like you, I think you're going to really enjoy this episode. And feel free to drop us a message. And if you get to the end of the episode and you think, you know what, I want to try some of this work too, then just head to our Instagram, look in the bio, drop in an application, reference this podcast specifically, and there'll be a special bonus for you. Anyway, make yourself comfy and dive in.
Mr. TMP himself is with us today. Kieran, if we jump straight in, I thought we could do something kind of cool with this, and this could completely backfire because I'm springing this on him as I'm saying this because he doesn't know what I'm about to say. And I've had this conversation with other people in different formats about certain topics being abstract, right? So I did one with Josh Taylor about content creation. And I was like, one of the biggest problems I think about content creation when coaches are listening to it is they hear the abstract principles and they don't see it applied, right? And sometimes seeing like the process, seeing how the meat is made, right, or how the sausage is made to some degree is often useful. So I was like, I was curious to maybe play about with going through some of the things you go through with clients and just fucking, I'm a pretty open book and I've been through a bunch of therapy, so I have no qualms being open and honest about kind of whatever is going on, but going like, can we give people an insight into what you help with, how you help with that kind of stuff? Because so many coaches struggle with the mental aspect, whether it's in their personal life or their professional life or the bleed between the two. And I almost sometimes think because they're alien to that world, they don't know what it really looks like or what it entails. So is there some wheels in this? Do you think this is possible?
100%, mate. Look, the number one value at TMP is be water. We adapt, we create, we deliver. So if
Very
you stick
Bruce
with,
Lee.
if you're gonna hit a puzzle at me, if I can't be water and I can't embody that, then what's the fucking point? So yeah, man, let's do it. I'm in. So
Love
there's a couple of ways we can do this. One is we can treat this as almost like an exploratory discovery call, and I'll ask you a few questions, and we can go that route. You might
Sure.
have a specific puzzle where you already know, this is one thing I'm fascinated by, mate. Why do I do that? Or why does this happen?
Yeah.
We can go that way. You'd let me know which one you want to go down, and we can play.
Let's do the first one because there isn't actually something that I'm coming in being like, fucking Kieran, I know this is my bag of terror and shit. Like, what am I struggling with? I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm curious and open. So let's maybe try that one.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, if we look at what is total mental performance, how do you achieve total mental performance? For us, it's the ability to achieve psychological freedom, not through the absence of suffering. You don't just do TMP and you don't suffer anymore. No, no. In spite of suffering, being able to perform regardless of how you think and feel, regardless of limiting beliefs, regardless of big mental health puzzles that can come in and cripple you, and how
Yeah.
you can get back on the horse much faster. So, I guess my first question would be, on a scale of 1 to 10, if you look at your personal performance, the way that you think, feel, and perform, where would you put yourself on that? 10 out of 10, could not be better, mate. I'm fucking on fire. 1 out of 10, can't get out of bed, can't do anything. I'm fucking useless. 5 out of 10, hit and miss. Some days good, some days really not good, up and down. Where would you put yourself on that scale?
Currently, probably a 7.5. I think we could probably subdivide it and go, there are facets I think I do very well. And, like, I don't think there's too much that needs to be improved there. I'm pretty consistent. I'm confident, I'm comfortable with that bit. And then other bits less. I'm sure everyone's in the same in this boat of going, it varies across time. If you asked me this in February this year when my life fell apart, it would be a fucking big fat 0. If you ask it me now, it's as good as it's been this year. But yeah, there's definitely still scope for figuring some of that out.
Great, excellent. And this is where a lot of coaches and clients think, oh, I don't need to work for a mindset coach because my life isn't falling apart. But performance isn't that. It
Yeah.
isn't that. It isn't just a big sad sorry fest and rebuilding from scratch. It is, doesn't matter if you look at the TMP logo, it's got the red and the blue. The red stands for protection and scarcity. The blue is for growth and abundance. And our job, regardless as to where you are on that scale, is to keep nudging you along towards the blue. So 7.5. Okay. In terms of how you think and how you feel specifically, what would need to happen? What would need to change in order for us to take that from a 7.5 to a 10?
I think the spread of workload, I think I'm arguably spreading myself possibly a bit thin within that. And I don't think I've quite got the balance right yet of how much work I want to do with some of my personal stuff and how much like unwinding, refreshing, recharging stuff I'm doing. At the moment, I feel like I'm running near the burnout meter, and every little thing that doesn't go quite right takes more out of me than I think that it should.
Yeah. Okay. How do you do in your downtime, just white space in the diary when you've got nothing going on? How does that work for you?
I don't know if you guys will be able to hear the lovely background noise that Kieran has
Yeah,
just
that's
given.
probably me. That is the sofa being clean. So
Yeah,
hopefully we
it's
can edit out the audio. I think that should be okay.
Hopefully. If not, if you can hear it, we apologize. It should be quite quiet in the background noise of it, but I thought I'd acknowledge it just in case they're like, why is he still doing it? Why is he still doing it? So can you say that again for me one more time, buddy?
Yeah. So think about that time when you don't have
What do I
work.
do with my downtime space?
Yeah. Well, not what do you do, but if you have lots of white space,
Yeah.
what happens? Is it, oh, this is nice. I can relax. I can calm down. Is there an element of anxiousness? Is there an element of itchiness? I've got to do something. I've got to. What happens?
It varies actually. So it varies. It depends on like if I've just lost a client or something like that. There's often I would call it like a mourning phase, right? And that itself varies in length. Like if everything's going well, that morning phase might be 20 minutes where you feel a bit right? And that it has different feelings based on whether they left for good reasons, they achieved all their stuff, or you felt like you let them down. And thankfully, I don't have much of that these days, so that's good. But there's a bit of a morning. If there's like a few happen in a row, and maybe you've got more punches to the face than you'd like in terms of what was kind of going on versus what you expected, maybe that takes a bit longer. So that could be 20 minutes and I'll still work through it and fine, up to I'm going to go lay on the sofa for 3 hours and mong out and do very little until I feel more like myself and crack back on, because I find it difficult to concentrate effectively and do tasks when in that boat.
Yeah. I hear you.
And then maybe the other one was, so that would be in those situations. Otherwise, if it's downtime and in a solid spot, that's often fine. Like I'll get antsy to do things. Like I don't like sitting around doing very little for very long, but I have quite a few hobbies and things I like doing. So they will alternate between I'll play music for a bit because I'm like, cool, I want to learn this thing or what have you. Or I read a lot. So it'll be whatever history book or thing that I'm kind of reading at the time. Or maybe I'll play a game or I'll see a friend. So if I'm in a good spot, I really like my downtime, and that open space is not a stress or a drama. So it's more maybe the reaction to the negative event and maybe how long that takes to feel back to normal from.
Got it. Brilliant. So on the emotional side of when things aren't going so well, because a big part of achieving total mental performance is the ability to have emotional resilience, which you have and everybody's got, but there's levels and there's levels and there's levels. And a lot of it is how quickly can you get back to the good spots on an emotional level, and how quickly can you surrender to those thoughts, to those feelings. So let's say you're in a bit of a bad spot, clients left, you've had your ass kicked, maybe you've had one or two kicking the nuts in your personal life. What are the key emotions that come up the most in those moments? Is it fear, anxiety? Is it guilt? Is it anger? Is it what comes up for you?
So I would say at this point, fear, which can lead to a sense of anxiety. It's more of a sense of like, fuck, if people keep leaving or if this stuff keeps kind of going in that direction. All right, okay, so I'm down $1,500 a month or whatever that thing happens to be. I pulled that number out because that is specific to this month, right? So there you go. All right, so okay, that needs maybe that's good because I actually need some more time freed up to do this other stuff anyway. But there's rarely a sense of guilt. I think I've over time evaluated my systems enough, had enough conversations that clients very rarely now leave for what I would call bad reasons where I fucked up a little bit. I was like, I didn't listen to them well. I didn't do this. I didn't that. I don't remember the last client that happened with. So it's very rarely guilt now at this point. But it's more that fear. Fear is probably the right word for it.
Brilliant. Excellent. And I can tell you've done a lot of work from every time we've spoken. I can sense that you have a high level of self-awareness. So if we look at Paul, I mean, in and out of therapy or mindset coaching, whatever you've done, how many years would you say you've done that for?
I like 10.
Right. So imagine a guy that's been 10 years at the gym. That is Paul. If you're listening to this, you might have worked with a therapist or a counselor before for a year or two, or maybe you haven't tried this stuff before. So where Paul is at right now, he's very self-aware and he's worked on this stuff. So the conversation we're having right now is all about the performance side. So that fear is an interesting one, because when you're spending energy in fear, well, that's more energy that you could be using to not burn out as much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it feels like it burns me out faster. Yeah.
Yeah. So that fear, when is it worse?
When there's like an accumulation of losses, I would call it, right? So like, let's say client leaves, and maybe the stress of, for me at the moment, getting all this mentorship stuff that we're running out and on course, like I'm the sort of creative lead of most of these things within the business. And so I just end up doing a fuckload of work within stuff. If we look at certain things like of the, I don't know, 170 posts we've ever made on social media for things, I think I've done 135 of them or something, right? I do the emails, I do most of the podcast lead, I write the copy, I like all of that kind of stuff. So if there's a lot to be getting done then, and we're figuring out direction of where we want to take the business, and so there's maybe uncomfortable conversations that sometimes have to be had within the business of the three of us who run it. And then, maybe my girlfriend is less pleased because I'm not as with her sometimes, like emotionally, or just like I'm there, but I'm not always there, kind of thing, or I'm not paying as much attention. And then a client, like, so it's that accumulation of those things. I think that's when I would say I struggle the most.
Client leaves, lots to do, directional, hard conversations, overall mentorship stuff.
Yeah.
Great. And where in your body do you experience that fear? Is it in your chest? Is it in your stomach? Is it in your head? Who's going to point into your body? Where does that come up?
It's not stomach. I would probably, it's a good question. Definitely head, and maybe a bit heart. It's almost more of a sense of like physical lethargy to some degree. It feels like having to move through treacle a bit. Like every act is like, oh, fucking, okay, right.
Is it heavy? Is it a heavy feeling?
Yeah, heavy is a good way of describing it.
Yeah, got it. And is there pressure or no pressure when this happens?
Pressure. I would say there's pressure.
And is it hot or is it cold?
I would lean it towards hot, but I wouldn't describe it massively as either.
Okay, brilliant. I'm just painting a picture because feelings are really fucking blurry.
Yeah, they are.
They just sort of spill over everything. But what we're doing here for the listener is we're putting some context and some borders around this. So we know that when a client leaves, mentorship stuff, there's lots to do, direction and hard conversations. We know that Paul is getting a feeling in his head and his heart, and it's a physical feeling. It's heavy. There's pressure. It's hot. So Paul can come away from this conversation and go, okay, well, I'm now self-aware of this. He will now be, when that comes up, he goes, oh, it's just the fear's back. Okay, brilliant. Okay. So this is where we go into the belief, because there'll be a belief in there.
Yeah.
So when this fear is happening, and this won't be the belief that you're carrying around all of the time, but just in this specific moment, you've had some downtime, you've had too much on your plate. A client has said, I'm leaving, and I'm not going to tell you why. And they've just gone, on top of that, you've had a hard conversation with three of the guys. So this fear is starting to turn up. What is it that Paul believes about himself to be true in that moment? Begin that sentence with I am, or I'm not.
I guess at heart, there is that fear of going, oh, maybe I'm not quite good enough to run all of this and to make all of this work. Yeah, there's definitely an element of that, or of going, and I think I could break it apart. Like I very rarely these days doubt my capacity as say a coach, or as an educator, but maybe as a business owner and kind of runner, and a feeling of I'm making this up, right? And going, why am I in charge of steering this fucking ship? I don't know where I'm going, right? And just sort of trying to identify where that's going, but of going, what if I just get this completely fucking wrong? And there's a bunch of wasted potential here, because I think there's the possibility of something pretty good, but man, am I the guy to do it? I don't know.
Brilliant. And yeah, look, again, this is the 1 to 5% tweaks. Because if you speak to a therapist going to go, you're stable, Paul. Great.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm not listening. I'm not looking for stable. I'm looking for elite world-class performance. So the conversation that we're having, this is where we're just shaving off some of the edges. These are the things where you've got an IKEA table that's been put together, and it goes, right, you can have your chops on there. Brilliant. Whereas this is where I'm taking that same table, the same materials, and we're cutting it in half and putting a layer of glass in the middle, giving it a nice teak finish. We're just polishing off the sides. That's essentially what we're doing.
I'm still offended that I'm an IKEA table in this example, but thanks, mate.
Oh no, you've done 10 years of this, so you are like a long, grand table. The marble, you never seen the ones with the marble inserts?
Yeah. That's there you go.
Yeah, and I'm just going around. Okay, right. We just need to, buff some of this out a little bit. It needs a bit of TLC, and maybe just shave underneath some of this fear. But the belief you've got there in this specific area, again, because a lot of people will think this carries over to everything else. It doesn't. The stuff that we work on is very specific. I'm not quite good enough. That's the common human neurosis. That's what every single human being on the planet is afraid of. We're all afraid of not being good enough and not afraid of not being lovable. That's
Yep.
essentially it. And this comes up in a number of different ways. And our job is to spot those and just keep chipping away at them. So uh, let's complete this sentence. I'm not quite good enough when this fear is happening. I'm not quite good enough because.
Because if I was, I suppose then the next bit is this wouldn't be happening. That I would be able to manage all this stuff. It would be going smoother than this. There's a funny assumption, isn't it? This is a good question. For those reasons that as I'm speaking, I'm realizing the assumptions to some degree built into a bunch of them of going, this one, and then I know one of Kieran's questions, which I'm confident he's now going to ask me, is like, what did you expect? Right? Of going, okay, so a good person would have this be smooth sailing, would they? But then this is me getting ahead. So if I just stick to the thing, right, of going, I am not good enough, because if I was, I would be able to juggle all this. I would be able to move through these emotions faster. I wouldn't have them. I would have a business that doesn't have exposure to them. I suppose there's some presumption in there of something like that.
Yeah. Well, what I wrote down is I'm not good. I'm not quite good enough because if I was, this wouldn't be happening to me. And this means, and that means,
and that means, well, I suppose it becomes maybe self-fulfilling, and that means that I'm not good enough, which becomes circular.
Yeah. So this is the loop. This is the line of code that's happening in the unconscious mind of Paul right now. This is great. This is really great. I've always wanted to do this with somebody on the podcast, but I haven't had anybody confident enough and open enough to actually kind of go and share.
I'm glad this idea was okay in that case.
whenever I have tested this stuff, I kind of get a wishy-washy answer. I sometimes doubt my ability, but I know I can pull it around. That's not really the belief. Whereas Paul has been very open here, and it takes a lot of courage to do that. So I'm writing stuff.
I mean, one of the while you scribble in that case, I like if you're listening to this, I've been through therapy and this type of stuff for like 10 years type thing. And I would say the first time I ever started speaking about struggles, it did take a lot of courage, and it was terrifying to be open. And I cried a lot every time these words would come out of my mouth because it was scary. I would also say the longer I've done it, the less courage it takes, because actually, and that's a nice place to get to with it. Like, I'm sure there'll be bits in this conversation where I might get a bit like, oh, fuck, right? And I'll have those little moments. But it requires much less bravery from me now than it did back then. So, if you're in a different boat at the moment, please don't think that I started feeling this comfortable doing this either.
Yeah, it takes a lot of experience and a lot of courage to get to this place. But again, you've been in the gym for 10 years.
Yeah.
I only started learning how to squat in 2021. Oh, okay, I did a little bit when I was boxing, but boxing was pretty old school when I was fighting. It was like, weights, that'll make you slow. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
But me, when I was learning how to squat, it was like, fucking hell, this is scary. Are people looking at me? Is this correct? Oh my God, am I going to break my back? Do I need a belt? Do I not? All of that stuff. You've already got all of that out of your system. And if you've done maybe a little bit of therapy, a little bit of counseling, this is something very different, but it's, the metaphor that I use is therapy and counseling is more general population. How can I get somebody healthy? Total mental performance is world-class strength and conditioning coach. How can we get this person winning world titles in what they do? And that when you understand it like that, this is where we're just going into this little detail. Okay. So if we shifted this fear, what would happen?
Shifted in what sense?
It went, or we brought it down by 70 to 80%.
Okay. If it wasn't there, I'd be worried that I didn't care. I'd be worried that I'd be arrogant. I'd be worried that I was hoping for something unreal. I think I think if it wasn't there ever, I'd be dreaming of some kind of utopia. And so I think perhaps the second thing that you said of like the decrease in its impact is probably the more realistic one, which again, if you listen to this, is probably an important thing to note, I suppose, of going, often we long for something internally that isn't achievable. You started this thing by saying, it's not the absence of suffering, but the mastery of it to some degree. So we've got that. So it would be if we could lower it, it would be faster to accept and move forwards in a positive manner from.
Then what would happen? How would that be helpful?
I suppose I would be able to get two things. I would be able to get more done, that sometimes I find it harder to do because I'm feeling a bit emotionally overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
Or I would find it easier to switch off and actually recharge in those moments when I wasn't working. So it would help me get the work done better when I was working and switch off from the work when I want to switch off from the work.
Well, there's kind of like a 2x multiplier there, which is, I'll get more done and I'll rest more, which means I'll get even more done, which means I'll rest more. Okay, so if you got more done and you switched off more, and it was easy for you to switch off, what would the outputs and what would the effects of that be for you personally, professionally?
I think professionally, efficiency, an enjoyment of the work, possibly a little bit more. That depends on quite what I've got going on at any one time as to what type of tasks. Some tasks are just inherently a bit more enjoyable than others. But I think it would allow me to enjoy the work more, because I wouldn't be acting from this, I've got to pick clients back up, or I've got to do this thing because it's just coming from a shit perspective. There would be more comfort, confidence in the knowledge that things will be okay. They'll probably be fine. I've done this before. I know how to kind of do this. There'd be less of the unconscious catastrophizing, maybe, that's going on within there. And then in my personal life, the ability to be more present, right? To be like, okay, we're here. And my internal brain wants to keep talking about this work problem that my partner doesn't give two fucks about, other than she cares that I'm upset, or, I can just be there with my friends and, my godson, or I can, what have you. Like, I would say actually one of the few places I find that I do switch off. I play five-a-side on a Friday evening. I like that hour because cool. It's easy when you're sweating, running around, having a good time, to forget whatever else is going on. And sometimes, so I play music. Sometimes doing that is helpful. But then I'd had a few gigs recently, and I hadn't gigged in like 15 years. And so I was thrown into this band that would play together a bunch of times, and there's like 25 new songs to learn. And we had all of 4 rehearsals before a paid gig. So I was like, this is normally a de-stressor, but now I'm stressed, right? Because I've got to get this fucking thing right. So music can be an escape, and usually is a little bit, but probably wasn't just due to the reality of, oh crap, you're about to do a thing you haven't done in 15 years. That tends to be a tiny bit stressful, and I would expect it to be.
Okay. So you'd move on quicker, you'd switch off quicker, you'd become more efficient, you'd be more present in your personal life, you'd be able to rest more, and you'd have more enjoyment in your work. Great. Well, tangibly, what do you think that would do for the business if you was turning up with that energy, a bit sharper, a bit more present, a bit more enjoyment?
So I think one thing I'm quite good at, depends what we mean by the business, but I suppose actually for this, if it's client facing, so if it's in the PT project, it's, turning up for the live calls, when the camera goes on, when I'm doing a check-in, most people won't have any idea whether I'm in a good or bad spot. I think my ability to perform, quote unquote, in those scenarios is pretty good, regardless of how I'm feeling, unless my world has completely imploded, which happened earlier this year, but hadn't happened for the best part of 10 years type thing. So in that sense, I don't think that would change. I think what would change is the tasks that are underneath that, whether that's getting slides ready for stuff, whether that's sitting down and writing the content creation, whether it's admin tasks, all those bits and pieces. That shit gets put off. And I find it hard to want to engage in those things, and it becomes a much bigger chore to engage in those things when feeling particularly crappy.
Okay. If you don't shift the fear, what will happen? It doesn't have to be my world will end. No,
because that's why I was taking my time a little bit.
It won't end, but think about it. If you don't shift this, what will happen?
I don't think anything terrible, because a lot of my clients have been with me for a long period of time. And so I'm not really actually worried that, fuck, everyone's going to leave. Real. I don't think I believe that strongly. I think I'll be like, shit, my income's going down. And those things I wanted to do, and they're now proportionally a little bit more expensive. And so, so there's some of that of like, okay, buying a house, all right, that might take a little bit longer, or some of those things are a bit more present. Maybe that holiday is going to be a bit, the plan of going away every month, maybe I should change that kind of a little bit. The freedom that ideally comes with having a successful business feels a bit less free.
Yeah.
But if I don't shift the fear, I think I'm left with just a bit more of a drain, with just feeling like like it's just harder to do everything than sometimes I feel like it should be. And it lingers longer than it should be.
Yeah.
I don't expect it to be absent because I think that's naive. But so if it's not there, it's not that it's not there. It's that it's there for less, it's processed faster, and it doesn't feel as heavy in me, I suppose.
Let me ask another question. What do you miss out on? What potential do you potentially not realize with this fear there?
I don't get as much done. Like stuff that should be ticked off quickly, that I want to tick off quickly because I enjoy personally more of the creative tasks, which is probably unsurprising. But sometimes those are secondary to doing the other stuff, right? That are the fundamental things within running a business. And I was monging out and watching some fucking YouTube history clip or like music thing or whatever it is that I'm like, I'm just going to chill for a bit because there's a million messages to reply to and, the client WhatsApp, then your personal kind of one, then there's the emails, then there's the gram, then there's the you're like, okay. It's almost like I have to psych myself up for those things sometimes. And so finding the enjoyment in being able to look forward to them perhaps, or enjoying that aspect of the business, which is, I think, inescapable in coaching. As I'm saying these words, I'm sure it must be something you experience because you're dealing with so many people's problems a lot of the time. Like coaching to some degree is a job of problem solving and often exploring what those problems are before you can even figure out what the solution to a problem is. And so you're taking on this person's problem and this person's problem and this person's problem and this person's problem all the time. And when you're drained yourself, your ability to want to jump back into that problem pool is like, right? And then there's a bit of guilt, actually, I feel for not being as quick on that as maybe I would like to be sometimes. So maybe there is something I would be better at with coaching within that as a result.
Yeah. Cool. So what I've just done there is I've just explored on a very top level with the time that we have is understanding this fear. So I'm going to play this back and you can say, Paul, sorry, Kieran, you've nailed it on the head. This is Paul in relation to fear. Or you can say, Kieran, it's a complete fucking miss. You weren't listening.
What are those
TMP,
notes, mate? This is terrible.
TMP don't know what they're talking about. I'm not even going to release this podcast. But essentially, you're in a good spot. You are in a good spot. And right now, it's a performance and abundance play versus a rebuild play. And that's great. And, you've been doing this stuff a while. Ultimately, the big trigger for this fear, which is experienced in the head and the head and the heart, that heavy pressure, hot feeling happens when you have more white space, a client's left. There's a hell of a lot happening on the mentorship side, directional stuff, and then also the hard conversations. And the belief that's underpinning that is I'm not quite good enough because if I was, this wouldn't be happening to me. And this means this is self-fulfilling. And that just comes back to I'm not good enough. Now, if we shift it, or we at least take it down 70 or 80%, we're ultimately just going to move forward quicker. We're going to make decisions quicker. We're going to get work done quicker. We're going to be able to rest a hell of a lot more, which then means we get more done, and then it also means we become more productive. And that's the cycle that we're really looking at. If we don't shift it, it's not the end of the world. And you don't have to go through a whole TMP process right now to completely change the game. Nothing's going to come crashing down or whatever. But the thing that you're sacrificing is a little bit of freedom that comes with a business because things are a bit more of a drain and you just don't get as much done. So that's my synopsis of what I see around the fear. And the reason I'm asking you, before we go into the next bit, On a scale of 1 to 10, how much does that hit the nail on the head?
Yeah, that's pretty close. That's like an 8 or a 9 probably within there. The only things I was like, the white space. I don't know that I struggle with the white space as much as like there's always things to be doing. So it's not even necessarily just in that. It's sometimes I will put off doing things that aren't downtime, as it were. They're things where I could be doing and should be doing something. And I'll be like, no, I need to process this a little faster because actually, if I can do that, then I'll be better at doing this thing. And I think there's truth to that sometimes. But I also think I could be better at shifting it faster, kind of within there. Otherwise, the rest is pretty much bang on, not having it linger as much. As I said, by the way, if you're listening to this as a coach, even if you're not doing a TMP thing within this, what Kieran's just done, which is listen to me, make notes, repeat back in a synopsized manner, is the best move you will ever make for having your client feel understood, because it means you will have actually took the time to really try and listen. And even if you're just trying to solve fat loss problems, promise you that type of process is super, super useful.
Yeah, it's just understanding, okay, this person has listened to me.
Yeah.
Great. Because every human being wants to be understood.
Yeah.
And all of our problems come from feeling misunderstood. And that's hard. And if you struggle to articulate yourself, then you feel even more misunderstood and you feel even more not enough, not worthy. But when you get somebody that goes, this person understands me. Okay, they've listened. Great. Then the connection on that call and the attention and the focus you'll have from the client will be a hell of a lot faster. The reason I asked you if we shift this, what will happen is because we want to understand, okay, well, is this worth working on? And if none of the upside is really worth it, then I'd just say to you, no, let's not waste any time on this. This isn't going to be the answer. If we sit, and when we're asking about what happens if you don't shift it, we're trying to understand the consequences. Is this worth working on or not? And what was interesting, I noticed the double bind, which was you have a relationship with this fear, which is it keeps me in check. I'm worried I'd be arrogant without it. I'm worried I didn't care. You are using this fear in a way to drive more performance, but is it the most optimal way? Well, I don't know, but there's a balance, which is why there was a part of you that was like, I don't want to get rid of it, because what if I become arrogant, and what if I come across as I don't care, or what? So there's an element that's being held onto there, which is a double bind, which is interesting. So as I'm listening to that, it's like, okay, well, is that going to stop Paul from making that breakthrough? Actually, is this a good thing for him? Because some people use fear in a very, very good way. So maybe I don't want to mess with that. And that's my call as a mental performance coach to figure out for Paul, okay, well, do I really want to completely uproot this? Or actually, do we need to keep a little bit in there? And Paul will have the answers for himself with the techniques that we use. So if we look at therapy and counseling, it's very much focused on the past. How does that make you feel? What is this about? If we look at life coaching, it's very much on the future and positive psychology. I believe as a performance coach, you need the context of all three: the past, the present, and the future. So the way that I would deal with this fear, it just depends on timings and how far you want to take this. I would be just trying to understand the root cause of where was this belief born, where was this moment born, and then on the flip side, the thing we're going to do in a moment is understanding, okay, well, if we're going to uninstall fear from the unconscious program, well, what program are we going to install instead? That's the bit, and we'll explore that now. So I want you to imagine, you mentioned earlier about gaming. Do you like gaming?
I do.
Yeah. Okay, so I want you to imagine I've just pressed eject and I'm just taking the fear disc out.
Okay. So why were we playing that game? That's a terrible game.
Yeah, we've been playing a little
put that in.
Yeah, whoopsies. What disc are we going to put instead? And if you're listening to the reason I've asked this question and I've used video games is I'm operating in Paul's model of the world. If I'm coaching a boxer, I'll use boxing metaphors. If I'm coaching a football player or a rugby player, you can use those. But we're going to use gaming for here. So if we uninstall that, if we remove the fear disc, what emotional state do you want to experience instead? And what are we going to put into the game?
That is a good question. Instead of fear, so we're putting in an emotional state.
Yeah.
Excitement.
Brilliant. Fuck yeah. This flavor of excitement, this game of excitement, can you think of a time when you had it, when you were playing this game in that state?
Yes. So I used to be an actor, so I would get it often before you'd start a new show, rehearsing for it before you go on stage. I'll still get a bit of that before I perform anything, really. So that can be just in front of a crowd. It can be before I play music. We're at Csikszentmihalyi High, I suppose, with flow stuff and going like, it's that bit where I'm finding like, okay, I can fucking do this. And like the challenge is also reasonable. I get it a little bit, even in creating content for like courses and materials and some of the education stuff of like, I do get an element of excitement being like, this is going to be fucking great. I'm better than anyone else is within this stuff. And I trust my ability to make that. So I find there's some there.
Amazing. Thank you for educating me on how to pronounce Csikszentmihalyi. Yeah. You corrected me as I was struggling furiously at the Supercharged event in person. That was very helpful. And
there's my arrogant state.
I've internalized that, so thank you. I want you to think about a show where you felt particularly excited, where that feeling really shone through. Can you think of a particular show?
Yep.
Great. So that show, when that's happening, I want you to really, really think about that feeling of excitement. And where in your body does that feeling come up for you? Is it in your chest, your back, your shoulders, your head? Is it all over?
Chest and hands.
Great. Chest and hands. Good. Describe that feeling. Is it heavy or is it light?
No, it's like a light electricity. It's almost like there's almost like a levitation.
Great.
It's like weird because even as I'm saying it, it makes me slightly emotional. Like I feel myself on the edge of like, oh wow, I could cry here.
Yeah. Is it hot or is it cold?
It's colder than the heavy feeling, but it's not cold.
Is it warm?
Yeah. A little bit like a hug.
Great. Excellent. That's what we want. Brilliant. And if it had a color, what color would this feeling be? This state?
It's like a reddy orange.
Brilliant. Just a side note on this as a performance hack. If you can figure out the hex code for that reddy orange,
Nice.
You can use that as a trigger or a cue. So one of my athletes is been to Wimbledon the last couple of years, and unfortunately, you can only wear white, but you can get away with stuff in the lining of the bag. You can get away with it.
Yeah.
So his peak performance color is blue, and that has him calm and confident. So by bringing this color into your world, it can really help. For me, white creates space. As a kid, I felt trapped through ADHD and my environment. So if you look at where I live now, very high ceilings, floor to ceiling windows, and everything in here is just white.
Yeah.
So that for me is a peak performance color. Is white. It gives me space, gives me energy. So you can do that as a coach. You can help clients with this on their squats, on their deadlifts, or okay, well, how do you want to feel instead? And just run the same playbook. Go back, listen to it, write down the questions I wrote. But we've got good basis there. So that reddy orange, you can use that and just put it somewhere. Maybe it's in front of you, maybe it's in your brand it, whatever you decide. Okay. So when that excitement was happening, you're about to go on stage, you're feeling that, you're almost levitating. What is it that Paul believed about himself to be true in that moment? Get that sense of I am what I'm not.
That's interesting.
And don't hold back. Don't feel like you have to be humble for the podcast.
No. I think the thing that was interesting to me is I immediately went slightly defensive, and I went, well, when I put myself in that mode, one of the things that jumps at me immediately is the fear of what if I'm wrong? What if I think I'm way better than everyone else thinks that I am within this and I had that always as an actor actually as well, which was, I got award nominated for a bunch of different kind of things, performance wise. And that I was always really terrified of thinking, okay, I think I'm quite good at this, but what if I'm the only one thinking it? What if I'm the only one who thinks that I am? What if everyone else is sat there being like, how does he think he's any good at this? Why is he there with everyone else that I'm in a show with that I think is wonderful? And, I'm thinking of a show I did called View Carré, which is a Tennessee Williams play. And there's an actress in it called Nancy Crane, who played a character called Mrs. Wyatt. And I would have watched her fucking read a phone book. She was so good at everything. I fucking adored working with her. And part of me was always like, and the girl opposite me, Sam, was excellent. And the whole cast pretty much was great. And part of me was like, how am I fucking in this? And yet there's a part of me that definitely goes, oh no, you are, and you must be, because you get a good reaction to it. Like, I would always feel embarrassed during the applause at the end, as though people are just clapping for me because they have to at that point, but really they're giving the praise for everyone else. And yet before a show, there is another voice in me that is like, let's fucking go. And yeah, you can do this. You're really good at this. Like, you're better than most people that you know within this. And you love this experience. This process feels life affirming. It feels exciting. There you go. There's that emotion. And yet that feeling, I don't think I've ever had that feeling without the other voice that wants to go, what if you're wrong then? Don't be that asshole of things, you know? There you go. There's it's the same thing. It's the thing you said earlier.
You talked about earlier, which is I kind of need the fear to be successful. And that's taken you to a level, which is great, but that might not be the thing that takes you to the next level. Because the level of thinking that got us into this room isn't the level of thinking and feeling that's going to take us to the next room. But that's brilliant. So let's just dial down the self-doubt voice for a minute. Let's turn the volume down on that one, however you internally process that. And let's turn the guy up on let's fucking go. What does the let's fucking go guy, what does he believe about himself to be true in that moment? And don't hold back. Begin that with I am what I'm not.
God, that's hard to do. Fucking hell. I find that unbelievably difficult to do and to say. I don't think I've ever noticed that. And that's impressive after 10 years of doing this kind of stuff to have not had this moment. Well done, you. I am. See, I'm even, because I'm sitting here being like, oh, the people listening to this podcast are now going to think, oh, he is that asshole. That's what's happening internally as I'm about to say.
Yeah. And this is why I said to you at the beginning, this stuff is hard to do in a public setting.
Yeah, really, but I don't care too much about that, because I'm also aware that I think there's value in it, and that's further putting off the thing that we're working on. So it's sort of a
fear of judgment happening here. Is I say what I have to say, people are going to think I'm an arrogant, stuck-up prick.
Yeah, 100%.
No, that's not what's going to happen, because we all have this inside us. So just go for it. I'm
a fucking great actor. I'm great at holding the attention of an audience. I know how to listen to a crowd. I can hold their attention in the palm of my fucking hand. I can play some roles better than anyone you've ever seen do fucking anything. This is where I'm meant to be. God, that's hard.
Yeah. I'm a fucking great actor, and this is where I'm meant to be. Because
it was one of the few things that as a teenager that came kind of naturally to me, I think. I remember being, I was always a kid who was quite good at most stuff. So I was pretty academic. I was pretty sporty. I was pretty musical. I was in the top sets for all of those things. But I was never the best, right? I was good across a large domain, but never amazing. And then we didn't start doing any acting stuff until I was in year 10 or year 9. I forget exactly when, 14, let's call it, something around that age. And it was just this thing that I did and I could do. And I was like, oh, I'm better than everyone else here. Right. And it felt easy. And it was, as a kid who grew up with acne and didn't feel particularly like attractive or what have you, there was something freeing about pretending to be someone else. I found a confidence in it. I found an outlet for these various parts of me that were probably always there. And so from that kind of moment, I was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is who I am with these things. And, there comes, it's hard to separate how much of that was part of the praise that I would also get from that, because I can't quite remember what it was like to be 14 and be in that boat, but I kind of knew it internally as well. And here's an interesting one as well. I had a trust in my ability that decreased in the first couple of years of drama school, because you've forever been pulled apart for a fucking million things. I felt like a worse actor in the first couple of years of training than I did afterwards. Arguably, I think I'd be better now than I was when I left, because I think I trust my gut feeling on some of those things. Like, no, this is what I want to do, and this is where I want to go with this. And maybe that internal voice is quieter now than it used to be. Still clearly not that quiet, though, is it?
Here we go. I'm a fucking great actor. This is where I'm meant to be because this comes naturally to me. And this means?
This means.
What, and that means?
I don't know what that means. Does that mean that that's, if there is a life's purpose, is it about finding the things that come naturally to you and acting in accordance with them? Maybe. In which case, that's what it means. And then we're back at some circular thing. Or this means...
What does it mean about Paul? I'm a fucking great actor. This is where I'm meant to be. I can do this. And that means...
That means I can serve other people and myself. I think people need stories. We love stories. And that means we need people to tell them. And we need people to hold their attention. And I have an ability to do that most people don't. And I think that connects people. I think I love public speaking for the same reasons. I think I like writing for the same reasons.
Breathe.
There's a connection thing. I think it's connection.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. How much fucking better would it be turning up with this excitement to fucking connect and serve other people versus questioning whether we're good enough or whether we can really do that? You can see the two lines of code that's happening. One line of code is things aren't going my way, and this is, well, I know for a fact, mate, if you were up on stage and we turned the lights off and all we had was a torch for a spotlight, we took the speaker off and you had to shout, you'd go, fuck it, bring it on, right? Because you're operating in this excitement space. But for whatever reason, when you're in this business space, this is where this fear, I'm not good enough, can I really do this? Because there's a belief which is you have to be a natural at something for things to be good. If I was good enough, these things wouldn't be happening. Whereas I know for a fact, if you're operating out of excitement, you just walk through those things. You'd be like, oh, fucking fine. Well, I'm here to connect and serve others. So these are the two conflicting things. And you will operate out of this guy when you're on stage. I know it. I've seen it with my own two eyes twice. So I know it. But it's in the moments when you're not on stage. It's in the moments where, and this is a boxing phrase which I absolutely love, is champions are made when no one's looking. Champions are made when no one's looking. It's in those quiet moments where you've got your chicken and your rice and you got a big fat slice of cake, or it's cold and raining outside, so you could fuck this run off because no one will know about it, but you will know about it. That's the moments where this stuff comes in. And this is where the internal battle of, am I going to operate out of fear? And we can use fear as a motivator. I don't want to get knocked clean out. All right, and go running. Scared or fuck it, this is going to help me become more gritty and more resilient. And when I do get in the ring, I'm going to think, no, I have to run through the rain. One of the things I used to do was, if I have to get on a plane somewhere, I do the same thing in public speaking. You're getting it. If I have to get on a plane to come and fight you, you're getting it. So it's internalizing that out of, all right, fucking let's go. Yeah. Abundance, like let's have it. So as a mental performance coach, looking at what I'm seeing, we're already at 7.5, but I can easily see how we could get to an 8.5 and a 9 if we could really fucking nail just this bit. And then the rest of the dominoes will start to fall. So there's two ways we can go with this, depending on time and how comfortable that you feel on this. If you need to jump off.
No, I'm good. We can run over.
So I've got some time for another about 50 minutes to explore this. And then secondly, we can actually start to explore an intervention. Now, I don't know if it's going to work right now in a podcast in a public setting, but we can try.
Let's try. We've come this far. The people should see.
Okay. All right. Well, look, if anything that comes up that you feel like, actually, you know what, I don't want to share that, we can still make the intervention without you sharing it publicly. So
now let's go for it. I'm pretty open at this point.
Okay. So we're going to use a technique called timeline. I don't know if you've used it before. It's a way of accessing previous memories to go back and reprocess that. So when I talk about the unconscious line of code, they're often born from when we were younger. So by going there in a safe space to be able to unlock that, you can actually pass on the learnings and the wisdoms you have now as an adult to that kid in order to help them unlock that and then move them forward back to now, which then allows us to go look into the future with that line of code updated. So if he was going to point in a certain direction as to where the future is, which direction would you point? In front of you, behind you, right, left?
Well, part of me, my first reaction was forwards, and then part of me went, it should be up, really, shouldn't it? But I pointed forward.
And the past is behind you?
Yeah.
Great. That's how you interpret time.
Sure.
That's your timeline. Some people are left to right. I've had clients that are up to down. I've had people on all sorts of 360 spectrums, but yours is forward and behind.
Forward and back. Yeah, I would say forward and back.
Great. So close your eyes and visualize those timelines.
Mm-hmm.
If they had a color, what color would they be?
They change from blue in the past to actually back towards that kind of reddy thing as we move forward.
Okay. So keep your eyes closed. We're going to keep our eyes closed for this exercise. Okay. If you was going to move above that line, is it easier for you to move yourself above the line or to stay still and move the line underneath you?
Easier for me to move.
Okay. And if you was going to move along those lines, is it easier for you to move or for you to stay still? Brilliant.
Yeah, me to move.
Get in touch with the fear. Mm-hmm. That heady heart, that pressure, that heavy, hot feeling. And if you were to ask your unconscious mind the first event connected to this feeling, such that by going back to it would allow you to let it go completely and for good, would it be a time before you were 5, between 5 and 10, or after you were 10?
After I was 10.
Brilliant. Good. So I want you to just follow that feeling back. And if you feel comfortable, share. If you don't feel comfortable, don't share. We can still do the work.
You want me to share?
If you was going to describe roughly how old you are and what's going on in this scene, what's going on?
So I would have been 12 or 13, I think. And this was my first kiss. And it was at the Rugrats in Paris film. And there's a girl called Felicity Flick. And I don't know, there must be 4 or 5 of us. And we did, it's dumb, but we did a thing like, we all kissed Flick in like some kind of rotating conveyor belt thing. That's fine. But and then I was pleased with this because this was my first kiss. So it was like a big deal. And then it was like a week, maybe 2 weeks later, during the summer holidays, I was at my nan's, which is in a place called Telford, and playing some kind of video game. And my phone rang, so like early days of mobiles. And I just had some people sing "You're shit and you know you are" down the phone to me about my incredible kissing capacity. So I think that's the first time I remember that feeling.
Thank you for sharing. Good work. Good work. If there's a connection between this event and that fear you've had up until now, what's the connection?
That even though I felt good about something, it wasn't actually good, and it was an illusion.
Okay, good work. Well done. Well done. Let's just ask the unconscious mind, if there was an event even earlier than this connected to that fear, how much further back would you go?
I don't know. I don't have a crazy amount of memories from being young. I remember someone passing away. I have a couple of memories of silly little things, but none that jump at me massively. I remember, it's a different feeling though. I remember being, probably must have been about 8. I remember being at Euro Disney, and I have 2 younger brothers. There's only 18 months between me and the middle one, and then another 18 months between him and the one below. And I was therefore the eldest one, and we had to get some kind of train between places at the kind of park. It's like an open train. And I remember having to sit by myself as we went through these things, and I felt a bit abandoned and a bit shit and kind of alone within that. But I think that's a slightly different feeling. So
it's okay. It's come up. What's the connection between this moment and this feeling and that fear that you've had up until now? What's the connection?
The being young one.
Yeah, the 8-year-old one is sat by yourself. You feel abandoned. If there
I
was
think
a
I
connection,
think I think a loneliness, a feeling of having to do stuff by myself, but not really, just being terrified of having to be alone with that feeling, maybe a bit abandoned with it, and being unable to actually deal with that.
okay, good, good. And if there was an event even earlier than this, connected to that fear or this abandonment or whatever it is that's coming up in this moment, how much earlier would you go?
I don't think I have one.
It's okay. I'm going to ask one question and just sit with it.
Mm-hmm.
If you did,
Was there a question there? I don't think I got the end of that. I just heard if you did.
yeah. So the answer might be no. There's no more. This is it. This is the end of the line. But
Yeah.
if there was a moment earlier,
Got you.
just see
If
what
there,
comes to mind.
I have some vague feeling of being very shy. And I almost have I have a slight memory of primary school, and I can't remember what it was, but giving a speech thing as like might have been probably similar age, maybe 7 or something, as part of a Christmas concert, and that feeling very like good, but and that being surprising to people because I was quite shy before then. But that's the only thing that's coming up.
Okay. So if you're going to ask yourself, what is the root cause of this fear, this abandonment? Is it this shy 7-year-old? Is it the 8-year-old on the train?
I don't know. Neither of them feel, aha, that's it, you know? So I think I'd be picking one, but I don't think it doesn't feel right.
So
The
that 12,
teenage one feels
12 or
more,
13-year-old one feels right.
yeah, that feels more
All
compelling.
right. Get back above your timeline, zoom forward to that 12 or 13-year-old. Let's go there.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you at that age can learn from you now, which by learning it means that he can begin to let that go completely and for good?
What could I do that would let me let that go for good? I don't know if I've ever let that go for good.
That's okay. What does he need to know in this moment?
I think of intellectual answers. I don't know how much they help or not, but the thing that's coming up is going, well, first off, even if you were crap at kissing at 13, that was your first one. Did you imagine you were going to be fantastic? There you go. That it's okay to not be great at something, and that's fine. Like, you can get better at a thing, all right? That it's okay if people laugh at you sometimes. That's what I would learn.
Good. Well done. Good work. So just be with that kid. Be with him. You mentioned your godson earlier. If he was your godson, what would you let him know? In this moment, he's had exactly the same experience. What would you say to your godson?
The thing that comes up is that I would say I love him.
Yeah, good. Fuck yeah. Go there. Go there. Just beam him that love. Good work. So if he was to know that, mate, it's your first one, what do you expect? To be fantastic? It's okay to not be great at something, and that he's loved. Is there anything else he needs to know in this moment before he lets this go?
Yeah, those other people suck a little bit. And they're probably just, they're fucking idiots, right? Like,
Good.
that would be like, okay, I don't want to slack them off too much. They're young and stupid, but like, you don't have to care about everyone's opinion equally. And mostly the people who want to take the piss and make you feel small are the kind of people you don't want to aspire to be anyway. They often don't do anything with their lives particularly. Fuck them.
Good. Yeah. Fuck him. Good work. Good work. Is there anything else he needs to know before he lets this go?
Not that I think he'd listen to. I think you're going to have to walk through some painful things. And you're going to care what people think, because of course you are. But I would hope that there could be a stillness inside you that didn't react to those other voices so much. There'd be a security and a trust, a knowledge, a belief that the most important of all the opinions is your own.
Good. Well done. Well done. So just taking a minute to check in on the little guy. He's got all of this information. He's starting to internalize it. He's loved. The only important opinion for him is his own. Building that stillness, that security. Understanding he's going to have to walk through some painful things, and it's okay. Is there anything else he needs to know or learn before he lets this go?
He has to learn how to trust in spite of being hurt.
Good. Good. Help him. Whatever way your unconscious mind, do that. Help him learn these lessons.
It's a strange thing to want to give yourself a hug in the past.
Give him a hug. Give him the hug. And whatever way your imagination does this, just implant all of these learnings into that boy as you give him that hug. All the time in the world. So give him what he needs.
I think I find myself going, I don't know if I know how to give him everything he needs.
Just in this moment. Just in this moment. He doesn't need to have life figured out, but this very specific puzzle of fear. And he doesn't have to have all of it figured out right now. just a few lessons that will just dial that down a little bit, calm him down a little bit. That'll put him in a better place than where you left him.
Okay.
Good. So passing on these learnings in whatever way your unconscious mind would do this. So when you look at him, you know that he knows all of this. You know that he knows he's loved. He's going to have to walk through some painful things to learn how to trust in spite of being hurt. Just passing on a little bit more stillness and security, a bit more trust, a bit more belief. Take your time, use your imagination, and just see what happens. Whether you hand him something, whether you beam it to him, you just give him another hug. However you do that.
I think I help him walk. It's like walking through a mist.
Walking through the mist. How you can change that picture, however you do that in your unconscious mind, to help him instill these beliefs, these learnings.
Like a sense of walking through some kind of dark, woody mist thing. I feel like I want to walk it to some kind of meadow, but I can't see the meadow in my mind's eye.
That's okay. Take him to any meadow. Doesn't have to be a perfect meadow.
It's a shit meadow.
It could be a shit meadow. Just see where you can take him.
Okay, I got it.
Good. Good. How much better is that in that meadow?
It's like a feeling of relief.
Good. Excellent. That's it. Great work. So just be with him in the meadow.
I still feel like it's on the edge of the wood. Because I just arrived.
Might take you a bit of time. Is there anything else he needs to know to take a couple more steps away from the wood?
He has to know how to trust still, and it's still lacking. I feel like I don't know how to pass that on.
So what we're going to do, mate, I want you to imagine old Paul in his rocking chair.
Sure.
And this guy knows how to trust. He's been there. He's done it. He's seen it. He's got the scar tissue. He's been through tragedy. He's been through hard shit. And I want you to bring him into this moment with you both in the meadow. What wisdom has he got to teach you both?
To release. You can't control whether someone hurts you or not. There's a feeling of ease with that acceptance.
Good.
Because I would have in that feeling, like a feeling of, no, that tenses me up and terrifies me, I suppose. And I'm kind of a bit in awe that this person seems to be able to be relaxed with that knowledge.
Yeah. So if you could use your imagination to have him pass on that learning down to you both, whatever way your imagination would do that.
It's like a strange baptism.
Brilliant. Go to the strange baptism. Run the process. He's in charge. He knows what to do. He's been there. He's done it. He's got the wisdom. He's got the t-shirt. He's got the scars. Let him run this baptism however he runs it. So you both can learn the lesson.
It's like he says, I release you.
Brilliant.
Like a hand on the forehead.
Good. How much better is that?
I think I'm still processing.
It's okay. Might take some time.
It feels like the collapse you get after dropping a heavy weight.
Yeah, this is heavy. This is big work. When we talk about deep work, this is it. You're doing the hard stuff.
It's like almost like an embarrassment to stand up and look people in the eye, but like the old guy is like, no. Just stand.
Yeah. So listen to him. Listen to him. Trust in the inner wisdom because you have it. You have it. It's inside you.
Says you have nothing to be embarrassed about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels such a resistance to that.
Ask him, what do I do with this resistance? What's he got to say?
It says surrender.
Okay.
Breathe. You don't have to fight it. There's nothing really there to fight.
So symbolically in your unconscious mind, surrender. Breathe. However your imagination gets you to do that.
I felt lighter as I said it, and then there's a feeling of, it's not a feeling, it's a vision of wings spreading. Like some kind of angelic wing.
Good. Excellent. Yeah, good work. put yourself in first person in the old man. He looks at you now. He looks at younger you, that 12 or 13-year-old you, with the wings spread. What does he see? How much better is that?
There's a pride, I think.
Good.
There's a pride of that journey and that person. And just a smile.
Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant. Great work, Paul. Great work. So I want you to take one last moment to just savor this moment. Be in the middle, your wings spread, having just done that exercise, having just had the baptism. And I should let all of that go. Part of you that's surrendered. Breathe it in. Savor that moment. Take a little snapshot. Then what I'd like you to do, I'd like to float back above your timeline with all of this below you and in front of you, with you facing the direction of now. From that position, where's that old feeling of fear? Is it there or is it gone?
It feels like it's just behind me. I had an image of, it's almost like a like a painting of sorts of, like being in the bottom of a valley. There was the meadow, and to the left of the image is the woods on the top of this hill. And then it drops down into the open of the meadow with a stream running down the bottom, and the three of us down there. And then on the other side of the valley, there's like this bright blue sky mountain. And at the bottom of the valley, there was little 8-year-old me to the left, stood behind me now with almost the moment of flight happening. So there's like a wing spread and both feet are just slightly off the floor. And then the old guy stood to the right of that image just across the stream. And it's like a moment of just taking off.
Brilliant. Go follow that back. All three of you. You, the old guy, that 12 or 13-year-old, and go give that 8-year-old some help. Go help him surrender. Go and help him take flight.
It's like Michelangelo's hand in the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah.
There's a surprising amount of religious metaphors in my imagery.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
That feels lighter.
Good. So this moment, the 8-year-old flying out of there, float above your timeline, so this event is below you and in front of you, with you facing the direction of now. On a scale, when you think about that feeling, where's that feeling now? Is it there or is it gone? That old fear that used to be there.
It's like a memory of a feeling.
But you can't feel the feeling.
No, it's like there was a space
Good.
where I know that was like a memory of it.
So go into this moment, that 8-year-old, all four of you now, with that feeling gone, just notice, how much better is that?
It's almost like looking at an image that's relayed on top of an image where you see that ghostly outline of something that was.
Yeah. You can imagine the differences to that child from that day to be different. All the opportunities, how he could think and feel and perform completely different to how he ever did. As you do, just float back above your timeline, coming back towards now, noticing along the way any old events that used to be connected to those feelings and what it is you can learn from those events, which means you've let this go. You've moved on. Take your time. Let me know when you're back above now.
Okay, I'm back above now.
Brilliant. One last thing. If there was an event in the future, which if you were to go there, would have been connected to that old feeling of fear. So an event in the future that used to be connected to that feeling of fear. If you could go there, just visualize yourself there. Just go there now. Just notice how that's different.
I think I have the size of one fear that's still bigger than the mountain, I suppose.
It's okay. That original fear we were speaking about, a client has left. There's a lot to do. I just want you to go into that. And as you look at that scene, how is that different? How are you experiencing? How are you thinking, feeling, performing different in that now than perhaps you were before?
There's a lightness. I think there's still a playfulness.
Good.
That there's a mischievousness, actually, to some of it, of a smile that says, so.
Good. So float into first person. So your unconscious mind can be aware of exactly what it is. How you think, how you feel, how you perform, how you carry yourself, your breathing, your energy. That lightness, that playfulness. So your unconscious mind can be aware of exactly how you can be from now. Because you can. You've got it in you. But all of this experience is created in the mind first. Savoring that moment. Knowing that you can.
I think my head feels lighter than my body.
Good.
There's still almost a weight in my body that I think my head wants to pull free from.
Well, the fear was experienced as heavy in your head, so your head's feeling lighter. So again, you've processed this emotion, you've processed this line of unconscious code. Brilliant. When you're ready, float back above your timeline, come back towards now. Let me know when you're there.
And I'm there.
Good. So after the count of 5, taking a deep breath, filling up your lungs as much as you possibly can. After the count of 4, just noticing your breathing. After the count of 3, noticing any of the noises in the room. After the count of 2, noticing the temperature. And after the count of 1, and your unconscious mind has processed what it needs in order to absorb all of these learnings and make them stick. you can open your eyes and return to this room. Welcome back.
Hey, buddy.
Great fucking work. How's that feel?
I almost don't know yet. It feels different. Almost like I don't know how to label it. Which is rare for me because, I like to label things. There's a lightness. There's almost a gravity to it at the same time, that's why I think I'm finding it hard to describe, because it's like a heavy lightness. Yeah. I feel very now.
Good. Fear lives in the future. Fear lives in the future. Good work, buddy.
Feel the need to exhale.
Yeah. I would suggest you go get a walk after this. Try and not do too many cognitively demanding tasks, and give yourself some space to just go breathe and just process this. Maybe do some writing. You might have some weird dreams. You might have zero dreams. Your unconscious mind, we've basically just shaken the unconscious snow globe, and it's just processing however.
For those not watching it, Kieran has a snow globe in his hand, but he's just shaking so near us. Mate, that was eye-opening. I hope anyone listening to this to now break a fourth wall again. Normally when you're doing a podcast, right, you have an awareness of what the audience might be taking or thinking, and you've got them in mind. And the first half of this podcast very much still had that, right? We were referencing other people thinking, and we're saying it, okay. And then that latter, how long was that? Half an hour, whatever that was. I was like, that could have been amazing for people to listen to. I've almost no idea, because, well, that was you guys getting, I think, an insight into something where you're not caring what the other people around are thinking or doing, because it's not about, no offense, you guys listening to it, right? It is now, because we're bringing it back to that point, but to give a little look at what some of this stuff looks like in a practical setting, because it can sound super abstract. It can sound, right, we're going to talk to the unconscious mind, or we're going to do this, or we're going to, and like, unless you already have some experience, I think, with those things, they like, what in the fuck do they even mean? And I was keen, because I thought it could be interesting to see within that. And I hope that it was, and at least even from my perspective, that was hugely interesting and of value and to go through. And I can clearly see why so many people love working with you guys and what you bring to the table. And as someone who's been through a bunch of therapy, even for me, there was a couple of exercises towards the end there of stuff I've not done. That was kind of new and interesting, and I'll be curious to see where that goes. But is there anything you want to add toward the kind of end of that stuff here?
For you personally, just process, take your time. I also I want you to WhatsApp me if in the next couple of days, if anything comes up. It's quite unsettling work, right? So I'm not just gonna shake the unconscious snow globe and go, so yeah. So
Bye.
just keep in touch with me, and just to see how this all stabilizes. In terms of what did we just do there? So if I play back part of the process, very open. In fact, that was me being water, right? Paul just said, I'm going to stick it on you. I've not given you any information. Usually when somebody comes to TMP, we have an application form. We've already had an initial call before we do all of that work. So for me to get all of that information into context mapping, okay, well, how can we move things up a level on an emotional standpoint? What are the thoughts and the feelings? Fears coming up. There's a performance gain. Paul's already at a 7.5. But I already know that when he internalizes this over the coming days, this is going to take him up to an 8 and maybe an 8.5. We context map. Well, how don't you want to feel? How do you want to feel? Something that I'm going to do after this session, and I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to make a custom recording for Paul to listen to before bed each night, using all of the language, all of the metaphors that we've got written. And that's going to help him process this work between sessions to make sure that this stuff really, really, really sticks. The technique I used is a timeline technique. So we are using his imagination. And And if you notice, I wasn't operating in my model of the world. I didn't say, right, stand up and knock the guy out. No, he said, I got the wings have just come out from behind me. I'm operating in his model of the world, not my model of the world. We went back to the root cause of where did the fear come from. We did the work. Paul's got a very active imagination, so he was able to visualize some really beautiful stuff. Some people aren't visual at all, they just feel it. Some people are very, very practical. Everybody operates differently. But again, with our number one value of be water, that's what we do here at TMP. We adapt, we create, we deliver. So in there, once we got to the root cause of the fear, we were able to help him reprocess that in his unconscious mind, taking him back to the present. But that's not enough. We have to help Paul understand that he is capable of change by visualizing the same stimulus that triggered the fear in the past. So now that he's there, what that means is he can now see it. No, I can respond differently to these thoughts. I can respond differently to these moments. So now his belief in himself is going to be even more as this stuff starts to stick, because not only has he gone back and resolved the past, but he's visualizing into the future. How can I perform in this way? And then we bring it back to the present. So we've dealt with the past. We've also visualized a different future. And then when I send him the recording later to listen to, he's been doing the work between sessions. So again, we're not just let's do some sessions. We have a very specific 18-week course where you're doing work like this between the sessions. He'll be listening to that to just drill that into his unconscious mind, either before bed, in the morning on a walk, or whenever you're stressed, just listen to that. And then he's laying those foundations. So as you can imagine, over 4.5 months, as we're listening and learning, that was just off the cuff. Hey man, do some TMP on me. But actually, as you listen, so as a coach, I'm always listening to language patterns, whether that's in a session, whether that's the text that you write me, whether that's a voice note, and I'm writing down all these little notes and just taking the table and just polishing it. There's a little bit more, just shaving off a little bit of fear, a little bit of embarrassment, just a little bit of that. And that, the compound effect of that is really what changes the game. So yeah, that's, I'm going to be honest, mate, that's one of the best podcasts I've ever shot. I think it's probably my favorite one I've ever shot.
Oh, thanks. Well, I really appreciate it. As I said, it was, I had this idea the other day. I was like, I want to spring this on Kieran, see what he kind of thinks as we do. And by the way, it's the marker of an excellent coach in whatever they do to be able to just go into these things and be water, right? That takes a lot of knowledge and confidence in what you do and how you help people and your ability to listen and do all those things that I really think mark out a master of something. And therefore, I had very little doubt that you'd be excellent at doing so. And well, I have to say, I was right. You were excellent at doing that thing, mate. So it was an absolute pleasure. So thank you very, very much for that insight, for that process, for your ability to listen and create a comfortable space to explore that. That's all of those are huge skills. And I think what you guys do is going to be so beneficial for so many people. So if anyone listening to this, if they don't know where to get hold of you guys, where's best to come bug you so you can help them?
Yeah. Well, look, if you've listened to this episode and you thought, I want to give that a go, I want to explore that, I want to see if that's right for me, just actually quote this. So whether it's me or a member of the team that take the call, we know, okay, you've seen that, because it means the speed at which we can take that call will be a hell of a lot faster. Insofar as the insights and learnings when you're asking, well, how does it work or whatever. But you can catch me on Instagram at Total Mental Performance. Just DM me and say that you've listened to this episode. If you want to apply to just jump on, head to www.totalmentalperformance.com, click apply for a call, select podcast, reference this episode, and I'll make sure that a team gets all over it.
Thanks, buddy. I almost don't know how to wrap this up as a result of that. It's been that wow. So I suppose I will wrap it up with the word wow. Thanks very much, mate.
My pleasure. Yes, team. So if you found this episode incredibly helpful and useful for you, and you think, you know what, I fancy some of that, then literally head to our Instagram bio, head to our website, www.totalmentalperformance.com, and click apply for a call. Or if you click the link in our Instagram bio, you'll be able to apply for a call there. And in that call, you won't go through the whole process like on that podcast, but what you will get is a clarity call. There'll be a next step for you to gain clarity on how can you personally, mentally, emotionally perform on a completely different league and a completely different level. It would be a very, 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 very powerful. It'll be either with me or a member of my team, and just reference this podcast because you'll get an extra special bonus on that call as well. So if you found this podcast episode helpful, then do share it with your friends, do share it with your family, do drop us a message, tag us all in, and feel free to drop in an application reference to the podcast. Infinite love, team, and I'm sure we'll have you back soon.